Representative Mo Brooks, RL, is urging President Trump to veto a spending bill put forward by establishment Republicans and Democrats, telling SiriusXM Patriots Breitbart News tonight the deal is really bad for America. Brooks detailed all aspects that he said make the spending package a major problem for American citizens while benefiting illegal aliens, human smugglers, child traffickers, the MS-13 gang, and the Mexican cartels. The spending bill includes $1.3 billion for 55 miles of steel bollard fencing, an expansion of catch and release, a potential doubling of the annual low-skilled foreign workers imported to the U.S., less detention space for border crossers, an amnesty pipeline for unaccompanied alien children, UAC, and their relatives, stipulations requiring local officials to approve all wall construction, chokeholds on immigration enforcement at the border and in the interior. Trump, Brooks said, should veto the spending bill. If the president were to veto it, we would sustain his veto, Brooks said. I would certainly hope that the president will veto because it's really bad for America. Whether he will or not, I can't say. I applaud President Trump when he does those things that help secure our border, that helps protect the rule of law. This legislation does not help secure our border, it makes things worse, in my judgment. Brooks went on to slam the de facto amnesty provision for the illegal alien sponsors, household members, and relatives of acts coming across the southern border and other restrictive policies that could block a national emergency declaration. Any sanctuary city or state potentially has the authority to block the construction of any wall during this fiscal year that they don't like or want. You've also got large tracts of federal government land where the president is prohibited from building the wall along the border under this legislation. With respect to immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, all sorts of limitations that are in effect, amnesty for illegal aliens. Emphasis added. If you have an unaccompanied alien child, UAC, in your household, then the entire household is exempt from being deported. If you're a MS-13 drug cartel, what does this tell you? The thing to do is to kidnap or get a kid, put that kid in your household and boom, you're immune from deportation no matter how many drugs you sell or people you kill. That's horrific. Emphasis added. Then you've got other language in this legislation that has the potential to restrict the ability of a president to build a wall under the emergency declaration that we anticipate tomorrow. Emphasis added. While urging Trump to veto the spending package, the Alabama congressman also asked voters and Trump supporters to flood the White House phone lines to voice opposition to the border deal. The average folks need to call and contact the White House and go crazy about this legislation, Brooks said. Ideally, under this circumstance, when you're trying to get bad legislation shoved down your throat in the last second where no one in the public had an opportunity to review it or understand it, much less communicate their views to their elected officials in Washington, D.C. Specifically, Brooks said there are 3 provisions in the spending deal that could be interpreted by the courts to ultimately prevent the president from building a wall at the border through an emergency declaration. Brooks said. There are 3 different provisions, that has caused at least one attorney to express great reservation about how the courts would interpret that and about how that may or may not confine or restrict the ability of the president to do what he thinks he's going to be able to do if he declares a national emergency. Emphasis added. Without this law passing, we've got a pretty clear picture about what the president can and cannot do, and the legal fights that we are going to have. If this law passes, then there are uncertainties that are arising about what the president can and cannot do when he declares a national emergency. Emphasis added. Brooks said nobody in Congress has read the full text of the spending bill because it was thrown into lawmakers' laps just an hour before they were asked to vote on it. Nobody knows for sure what's in it, Brooks said. And certainly, the parts that we have read we are not sure what they all mean. This legislation should be vetoed by President Trump if his interest is in protecting Americans from the problems we have from our porous southern border. And I hope he will get that advice from counsel from the people in the White House who are advising him, but I fear he is not getting good advice from counsel. Brooks said the spending deal will lead to an amnesty for millions of illegal aliens because the bill goes to great lengths to keep illegal aliens from being deported and makes sure that newly arrived border crossers are readily resettled in the U.S. The longer you allow illegal aliens to stay in the United States of America, the greater the probability that they're ultimately going to get amnesty because they're going to have kids. Some people refer to them as anchor babies. The public eventually is going to allow that sort of amnesty long term, Brooks said. The Open Borders Democrats believe they got a steal of a deal because they voted in the House, Over 90% Democrats voted for it, Brooks said, while a significant majority of Republicans voted against it. Brooks busted establishment Republicans who voted for the spending deal and who are urging Trump to sign the bill into law. Well, you've got establishment Republicans, you've got the Koch brothers, you've got the United States Chamber of Commerce, you've got groups that want huge surges in the labor supply because it suppresses wages for workers, which in return means more profits for the United States Chamber of Commerce. Emphasis added. Brooks said conservatives should not put much emphasis on claims that the spending bill is a win for Republicans because it exposes Democrats' unwillingness to secure the southern border. Brooks said the spending bill is the Democrats' litmus test for their open borders worldview. Brooks said, the Democrats have made it clear that they are for open borders, that they see this as a way to take control of the federal government by diminishing the influence of the votes of American citizens, and they do that by importing large blocks of potential voters, of people who are heavily dependent on welfare, which makes them the ideal pool from which Democrats get elected. Emphasis added. This is a litmus test issue for Democrats. It's a game plan that they've seen work extremely well in California, and they're going to try to use the same game plan in states like Arizona, Nevada, Texas. You're seeing that underway right now. Emphasis added. There is no chance that Democrats are going to give up their long-term game plan, their long-term control of the United States of America, their long-term desire to dilute the votes of American citizens by agreeing to border security and a wall. They're just not going to do it. Emphasis added. 2 years ago was the time when Trump should have declared a national emergency and invoked the Pentagon to have the U.S. military begin building the wall at the border, Brooks said. The president 2 years ago should have declared a national emergency, Brooks said. The president 2 years ago should have used statutes like 10 United States Code Section 284, where he has the power to direct the United States military to go the border and to build a wall. And there's money, over $1 billion worth of funds just using that one statute. How many dead Americans do you have to have for it to be a national emergency? We're losing 50 dead Americans a day, 15,000 dead Americans a year, Brooks said. From illegal alien homicides coupled with drug overdoses, so how many dead Americans do you have to have? Name a national emergency that is greater than 15,000 dead Americans a year. We went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan on just 3,000 dead Americans on 9/11. Brooks again urged the president to veto the bill, even if his veto is overturned. If President Trump can hear my voice, I ask him to veto it. If he's going to get run over, let him be run over after having fought the good fight. Don't agree to bad legislation. It might take him a few months, but in my judgment, give it 3 or 4 months of passage, and he's going to be very upset that this legislation passed just like that out-of-control spending bill in the spring of 2018. He felt coerced into signing it, he did sign it, and he regretted it shortly thereafter. And I hope he learns from the mistake that was made. Emphasis added. House and Senate lawmakers have voted to pass the spending bill through to Trump's desk, where White House aides have said the president will sign the border package.